More than 600 books have been taken out of circulation from Hillsborough County classrooms after a letter from state officials. Take a look. In a letter last week, Attorney General James Othmeyer asked for the immediate removal of materials he called, quote, patently pornographic, end quote. The books include Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, Toni Morrison's Beloved, and Ari Folman's Anne Frank's Diary, the graphic adaptation. Othmeyer said the state's newly created Office of Parental Rights plans to give parents more say in what books remain. School District Attorney Jim Porter says that since 2022, Hillsborough County has removed over 389,000 books from its collection of more than 2 million books, and says it will continue to, quote, actively review its collections, end quote. Stefana Farrell, co-director of the Florida Freedom to Read advocacy group, estimates that around 622 titles were pulled and called the directive, quote, a horrible state overreach, end quote. According to PEN America, a nonprofit that advocates for free speech, Florida tops the nation in book removals. And Stanley, I'd like to start with you on this.
I think that this whole process is subjectivity in action. And it's really kind of interesting to me because, and again, I'm not declaring war on anybody, but when you look at this state's individuals who are participating in swapping, clandestine homosexual activities, and all other things that you might say are sexual perversion, there's one party that leads this, okay, and it's the Republican Party. So my first question is to the Republicans who seem to be behind this, where did you get your ideas for these things? Was it reading books? And I also have a real problem with, because the reason why I say it's subjective is because when you read something, you interpret something different than I would, okay? I mean, and a classic example of that is the Bible. And I think that what we've done is that we have unleashed an arm of subjectivity that is driving this process, and I don't think it's right. You saw the picture there. I didn't see anything but Caucasian women. I mean, where are the black women? Where are the Hispanic women? Where are the Hispanic men? Where are the black men? This whole effort is being driven by a minority, and I'm going to give them 32%, when the rest of the percentage have no voice in this at all.
Not all Republicans are share those feelings, just like not all Democrats share those feelings.
And I agree with you.
There's diversity of opinion within each political party. Jake, how do you see this?
Well, I think that we've started a process here in Florida that gives back the ability for the parents to make decisions and be able to challenge books. And it's obviously been a long-standing issue that's happened here, especially in Florida. And we've got a better process now, I think, that enables parents to challenge books like this. I think when people see the headlines and they see, well, Anne Frank's Diary, well, it's not Anne Frank's Diary, it's Anne Frank's Diary, the graphic edition. So there's a bunch of sexual graphics in the book. Why is that? Yes. Why does that need to be in schools compared to Anne Frank's Diary? And so even people who, like myself, are Jewish, look at some of the interpretations that were done by an author and ask why you can't teach that book instead of this book with this additional graphic material put inside of it. So I think it is subjective, to Stanley's point, but it was subjective when somebody that's an unnamed bureaucrat at the school decided we're going to stick it in the library.
Well, it wouldn't be an unnamed bureaucrat at the school. It would be a librarian that decided to put it in the library that goes through an entire process of approval. And it's always the parent's right to tell their child, you can't read that book when they bring it home. There were countless books in the library that I never picked up, let alone we now have the internet that kids can go find anything they want to find on.
Well, parents to just consider the other side. There are parents that say that schools make it very difficult for them to come in and say, I do not want my child to read that book. Can you provide another activity for them to do while the rest of the group is reading this?
I think that schools, because of this pushback, have gotten much better about warning. We're going to talk about this topic. They send permission slips home. They offer opt-out. Mm-hmm. They're trying to do as best as they can to give diversity of thought. And if you take a look at the books that are being banned, they're all very diverse. There's no really buttoned up. They're going after Beloved. They're going after The Bluest Eye. You can see where they're going. They're trying to erase history, in my opinion, and I'm not real appreciative.
I just think that, even using the word ban is strong because we're talking about it's not available in a school library. There's this idea that we're burning books. I hear it all the time from different people that we're burning books. You can go on Amazon. You are allowed to have any book you want in the state of Florida. As a parent, if you say, hey, I really want my kid to read this book, then you can go do that. There's nothing stopping you from ordering it online or going into a public library even. They're just not on the shelves in the school for the kids to go to themselves.
And Craig, and in fairness to parents who are in favor of really controlling the books that their kids are assigned to read in school, many parents do support this. This is certainly not the first time that you all have covered stories about books being banned.
Certainly not. Yeah, and it comes down to parental choice. The challenge is you've got a debate in which both sides say that they're fighting for parental choice, whether their kids have access to these books in libraries or whether their kids should not have access. That's the issue here. And it's a challenging line to draw. And by the way, you have the Miller test to determine whether something is obscene, and that comes down to subjectivity. First off, you have to make a determination that it has no particular artistic or literary value, and then the particular community has to determine whether it finds the material otherwise obscene. That community may have different standards than, say, a state attorney general from Tallahassee. So it becomes tricky. And I would say, for example, here's an example of a book. You have the story of a sex criminal who produces pornography and then engages in an illicit sexual relationship with another man until they both are tortured to the point they can't carry on. Is that something that belongs in a high school library? What if I told you that story was George Orwell's 1984? In which the author is warning of a totalitarian society that controls people through censorship of content. My point there is that it becomes a difficult line to draw, and it has to be very carefully drawn in the end, and that it can be argued from both sides in terms of what's appropriate and what's not.
And the other side is there are parents who would say, well, Animal Farm perhaps could provide a strong, important lesson on the perils of totalitarian control, and asking for other books to be chosen that perhaps don't have that sexual content, heavy sexual content in them. Stanley, you were going to say?
Well, one of the problems is that public schools are for the public, okay? And I think that what we're doing is we're systematically, like now we've taken out history of minorities and women, et cetera, et cetera. We're just going down a path that's not really good. So now what's happened is the public schools are going to service, not the public, but the ones who have the voice. And that is going against everything that the schools were established for.